Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, David Walker joins me to talk about some Hornets Reel Access takes. Plus, we'll get to more Olympic basketball. Josh Green hadn't scored a bucket in Olympic competition. Does that matter? Are you starting to worry at all going into next season? We'll get to all of that today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We welcome David Walker now to the program. You might have heard of him. You might follow him as well on Twitter at David B. Walker. Thank you, David. Appreciate you helping out amidst like a 3-week hiatus. My co-host has taken vacations and he's getting sick and he's leaving me to producing the show badly. And so you're going to have to help out a little bit.
You're booking guests. You're producing the show. You're getting the graphics going. Come on. I mean, it might not be a job when he gets back. Who knows?
Look, maybe I'm just going solo. You know, it would be nice to have those fat stacks getting filthy rich that Locked On Podcast Network is helping us with.
Hey, Walker, I see your Charlotte 49ers logo on the back there. It just had me thinking, are you going to make the trip up to Chapel Hill this fall to watch?
I have season tickets for the Charlotte 49ers home games. I thought about going to Chapel Hill. I might. I'm not sure yet. I think maybe I actually have to go to Boone. That's where my mom lives that weekend. Gotcha. But if I don't, then it's a high possibility. Yeah, you see, this is just, I don't know why I'm admitting this, but if you're watching us on YouTube, what David is talking about is just a Charlotte, like, wooden cutout logo thing. I thought it was cool. It is sitting on a bowling ball, which is sitting on 3 containers full of basketball cards and random basketball stuff that I swore that I would move and get out of the shot but right next to it is like a decent display case, which is a little too far in the background. You can't even really see all the other stuff. I got to get it figured out, man. Like, listen,
never going to get easier. Let me tell you from personal experience. And, Doug can tell you once kids come into the picture, it either makes it easier or it gets more crowded. So,
it's funny how I thought I'll just put the Charlotte logo there. And now it's all nice. Instead of the bowling ball, it's like stuffing. I know it looks like stuffing everything into a closet and then calling it clean. I put a Charlotte logo on the bowling ball and said, all right, now I got to set up.
Good to go.
Doug, we were talking about getting me situated. I had to go to a bunch of different spots. Everybody remembers when we were going through renovations. Phase 2 is going to happen at some point, by the way. I'm going to have to do that. But people miss the fish tank. It's like, okay, great. I can't win for nothing, man. I'm trying to give you the setup here, and people miss the big fish tank in the background. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, I promise we're going to produce this show better, despite the YouTube comment that said, I love Walker, but when Doug is gone, the production goes so downhill. Like, we got some music, though. So he was missing the music with the transition. So we have the music in place. I don't know if it's going to be deployed accurately, quickly, well enough, but I have the music, and so we're going to try to hit the ground running. The production for Hornets Reel Access, that was good, however. Really cool episode. We've talked about it a few different episodes now, David. I was just going to get your takes on some of it. I just saw it as a Tidjane Salaun episode. They made so much about him, and I thought that portion was the best part. So they reveal the process leading up to the draft. They focused on his personality. I talked a little bit about that with Sam Purley of Hornets.com. It seems like a really cool dude, David. Like I know, I don't know how much that matters. They've had cool dudes in the past that don't play basketball well enough, and they have some guys that are relatively quiet and are very good at basketball. But I think if you do care about the culture of this team And if you're trying to market your guys a little bit, Brandon Miller is funny. Like, he's got a charm about him.
Yeah.
Anytime I've interviewed him, I think a couple times, and it's been real engaging, funny, like we'll joke and go back and forth with you.
Yeah.
Seems like Salaun will do the same thing. And it's harder for him because English is not his first language. And I also like that even without it being his first language, he's making some witty jokes that's real funny and well timed. And
Gotta like it. Yeah.
It's cool to have somebody with that bubbly personality that you can gravitate towards being on the team.
Totally. I mean, I'm totally with you. And I continue to see this kind of shift in the personality of the guys they're looking for. I mean, maybe shift is too big a word, but they're obviously looking for guys who are workers, for one. And he looks like a worker to me. I mean, and he's so young that's their upside. I loved in summer league, I think he tried his first peanut butter and jelly sandwich out there.
He did.
It was mine.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. You know, that's the type of stuff you see from these little behind the scenes stuff in the off season. That's cool. But man, I mean, yeah, it's all, you know, it's a lot of potential right now. You know what I mean? I mean, we talked about his summer league play, some of the hits and some of the misses, but I think your point is dead on. It's like they liked a lot about this guy. A lot of it was on the court, yes, but they also saw the potential for him to come in and be a good fit and to work hard. I mean, anytime you're taking a guy who's, you know, English is not his first language, there's going to be a little bit of you know, of a culture shock or a language barrier, at least to start, you know, and having a guy so young, they must feel like he can come in there and not be affected, that can blend in with this young core that they're putting together now. And some of the Brandon stuff is interesting too. I mean, you saw him kind of having fun in his summer league game, playing around with that. Like, and I mean, I know Doug took some heat for kind of calling him out about not taking it serious. But like, I think Brandon Miller is a serious guy, and not that Doug doesn't, but like, I was actually okay seeing that. I mean, my gosh, there wasn't a lot for this team to bounce up and down on the bench you know, for last year. Like, the only time the bench got any notice was when LaMelo was over there and they were cracking up, getting, you know, beat down by 30. So like, I think it's okay for this team to kind of wash that all away and bring in some personalities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it always gets to be a tricky business when you're trying to judge dudes' personality, or at least their emotions on the bench, whether it's a blowout, whether they're winning by 30 or losing by 30. I guess for sure, I guess it's not the greatest look, but also it's not nearly as strong enough for me to indict them on being
didn't care about it either way.
Apathetic. Yeah. So like, I'm totally with you. And Brandon Miller, it was having fun. I'm glad that they were having fun. They won. Like, what else do you want? They were winning. And so I'm totally cool with it. So here's a part, just everybody, I think everybody understands the game, but if you don't, I'll lay it out pretty clear for you. So we had Sam Purley on. The dude works for the team. I ain't in the business of trying to get Sam Purley in trouble, right? That's our guy. We love Sam. Right. He does great work. Follow him for great nuggets and great pieces on different Hornets and all that. It's good stuff. But like, just to talk about some of the things with you, maybe that I really couldn't with Sam. One of the things I wanted to mention was the draft process. So this is what we watch when we watch Hard Knocks, when we look at Blueprint, the Panthers series that they put out on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's easy fodder. It's easy content. Just show the behind the scenes stuff, show the phone call, show the GM calling the prospect and having that heartwarming moment. Make sure that you get the prospect saying, I'm ready to get to work. Make sure you get the GM saying, enjoy this tonight, and then come in ready to work tomorrow. Make sure you get all that stuff. But in the process, they were showing Jeff Peterson and Dotun Akinwale, the assistant GM, going through some of the prospects that were in play. They talked about Alex Sarr, Donovan Clingan, Reed Shepard, Salaun, Dalton Connect, Cody Williams. So 6 players you could hear them talk about. Not shown was Zach Risache and Stephon Castle. Yet you heard Jeff Peterson say, well, we have a board of 8 and we have pick 6. So Risache wasn't on the list. I'm guessing because they knew he was going to be number 1. But Castle also wasn't on that breakdown. Like they talk about Reed Shepard. Hey, maybe we go up and we have to figure out if he's a trade up candidate. I think if you mention that, then you're contemplating it. So there's one. But they did show it. Hey, they didn't say we want to trade up for him, and they didn't, but we have to figure out if he's a trade up candidate. They talked about Klingon. If Klingon is the best prospect in this draft, then we can't not draft him because Mark Williams is on our roster. We heard them say that. So that was interesting as well. I did find it the most interesting, though, David, that they didn't show the Stephon Castle analysis just because you started to hear some things about Castle being the real target. And if that's the case, and that's the only guy they don't show, this is high speculation, right?
Yes.
It's just maybe it's because they didn't want to show the analysis that points to him really being number one on their board. And then, of course, going to Salaun afterwards. I'm sure they would have taken Shepard had he been available at 6'2".
Yeah.
They showed his analysis anyway. I just found it interesting that if it could just be nothing. Could be like, all right, we showed you 6 prospects and we're moving on. But they didn't show Castle, and he was in that mix. And is there anything that I should be taking away from that? Or do you think I'm putting my tinfoil hat on a little too much?
So they didn't show him like slamming the table when the Spurs picked him, or like flipping the table over.
Right. They didn't show him slamming the table. They didn't show him slamming the table. Well, and like when Jeff Peterson after the draft, he said that, he was high on our board. Salaun was high on our board, but he didn't say like he was number one. That was one of the more interesting things to me because you have to imagine that they wanted Castle and he goes to the Spurs, and then, Ron Holland goes number 5, whatever. But it just felt like that was something to take note of for me.
Could be just, could be an editing thing. You might be right though. The more that draft got closer though, I felt like Castle was just like a deadlock for the Spurs. So who knows on that front? I feel like that they were zeroing in on him too, but I never felt like he was going to get there. It felt like the Spurs was like the forecasted pick 100%. So, but I mean, hey, this is conspiracy time. This is the summertime. Doug, I'm sure to bring in Doug Spirit, he would be all over this. It's absolutely, that was their number one guy. So
did you like,
I don't think you're,
my bad. Did you like the comment about being interested in Klingon despite having Mark Williams on the roster?
Love it. Love it. I mean, that's what I wanted to hear. That's what we talked about it, right? It's like, we love Mark Williams. But why are we basing much of anything if you got a player that, you can put on your roster, who may give you something different, who may give you in the long run something better or more stable. No, but I like that. Well, bottom line is they shouldn't have been, they need to take the best player. That's what we were screaming for the whole time. So good to hear that, I think.
No, I think it was good to hear it too. I think it was good to hear the philosophy, even if I was more towards I want my first round picks to be able to play on the floor at the same time.
Sure.
Like I never had him off the draft board. I just liked some other guys a little more so, but I'm glad to hear the philosophy, at least from Jeff Peterson. All right, maybe we give you a few more details on Reel Access, but coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast, want to talk a little more about what we see not only from Reel Access, but Olympic basketball. Vasa Micic and Josh Green, they're actually playing against one another right now as we record this podcast. We'll check the box score, and then we'll talk about their past performances in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. Before we get to Olympic basketball, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, there's a million different deals, last-minute deals, flash deals, and zone deals. I like the last minute deals because, well, I procrastinate, but also you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So it's not even just sporting events. You can go to Game Time for other events as well. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Plenty more Locked On Hornets, plenty more David Walker coming up in just a moment here on the Locked On Podcast Network. There we go. We got the music going
right there.
That's the old stuff. That's if you are a Hornets OG, a Locked On Hornets OG, then you probably remember this transition. This was when you were hosting, probably. Does it sound familiar at all? It's starting to fade a little bit. Maybe not as much. Old host now, but still a part of the family. David Walker joining us here on Locked On Hornets. So, yeah, I mean, it's just some other Real Access takes real quickly. Like, I am interested. One, it's a Tuesday. You're on the pod, so we have to talk a little more about Miles Bridges. We have to mention it, and no controversy, but we do have to mention it. I just am interested in how they're going to market Miles this year because they gave him a new contract. Last year, it was easy to not market him as much, just too hot coming off of a 10-game suspension at the beginning of the season, not having played the entire year, the year prior. And it was one of the questions that I had going into Real Access. Not a lot of time spent on him, but there was some. And they showed you the highlight package. They showed you the classic, him talking to the camera, sitting on the couch, giving you, hey, like, I wanted to be here. The Hornets are like a family. I don't think that's verbatim, but talked a little bit about that. They had the video of the signing, Rich Paul standing in the background. Everybody's dapping everyone up. They're laughing. It's exciting, and I'm sure it is exciting for them. He just signed a contract for $25 million a year. So he had a comment or two, but not that much. I guess, like, how do you expect the Hornets are going to approach the marketing of Miles Bridges? Because he's a big part of this team. If it's LaMelo and Brandon that are the first two guys, you could have your nerd NBA argument about Mark Williams mattering, a very Rudy Gobert-esque argument about him mattering more, team, defense, whatever. But Miles Bridges is your third option, and he's going to be the third most popular player from an on-court scoring, exciting standpoint. I just wonder how you market that with us being like a decent ways away from the arrest for Miles, but also like still everybody is very understanding of what Miles Bridges and what kept him from the floor just, 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, I think you're going to see full court press on Brandon Miller. They know what they've got in him now. And to start last year, he had that rookie vibe going. But they weren't, no one's sure until you get on the court what a guy's going to do. But Brandon Miller is clearly the guy, I think, is in line to be the guy for this team. So the easy answer for them is just lean heavy on that. You'll have LaMelo back in the fold, and they've already gone through a year of it. And that's where this new regime, we don't really know, because if it was an old regime, I would say status quo. They won't say a word about anything. They barely had a press conference when they brought him back on the team initially. There wasn't much talked about at all. He certainly wasn't put out there that much. Even though you think about Walker, like he was the guy really last year as the most durable guy. He was like the leading scorer. And you didn't hear really much of a peep from anywhere. So how does that change now with this new relationship, with this longer term ish deal? You're right. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. This team has a lot going on. I mean, they're doing work in the arena right now. They've got the new owners in place. They've got the new coach in place. That's the other thing they could lean on. They got a coach from the NBA champion Boston Celtics in the house, right? So there's another option to throw out there PR wise, or to front face this organization. So my guess would be dipping the toe in the water, at least at the very beginning. I just don't see it being like a lot of Miles Bridges bobblehead and jersey.
That's what I'm saying. No, you're right. Like I don't know if there's going to be the bobbleheads. I don't know if they're going to have the jersey night, but like as far as, putting him out, I wonder how much, post game access that we'll start to have. They'll probably put him out there on the podium a little more this year. And those questions aren't going to be asked of him anymore. And part of it is too, like, even with it being important to talk about, like also, time and place. Hey, nobody's going to ask him about that stuff after those games, and nor it would be weird. Like objectively, it would be weird to continue to ask about it. like after those games. So I don't expect that to happen as well.
And it goes without saying, who knows with Twitter and everything else. Like,
Oh my God. Yeah,
you
you're
know what I
right.
mean? Like,
Yeah, we
it's
didn't even
just,
talk about that.
who knows?
Right.
Who knows? We're
And
just
maybe
talking about what we know today.
Well, a lot of that stuff I think is going to be handled on media day. If those questions are asked, then for me, media day, since I've been doing Wes and Walker, it often happens right when we're recording. So I'll be able to get there usually like early on, and then I have to go back to the show like, I don't know, 11 or something. We've been hosting at the Spectrum Center, and then we'll have some people come in. But they're not going to give us miles, and I get it. So we'll probably get like Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. That's who usually, the head star, or like close to the top, but maybe not LaMelo. Just doesn't do a lot of media stuff anyway.
Right.
So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Media day, and then how everything is handled afterwards.
And not even talking about like a specific Twitter thing, because that stuff can go by really fast. But like in this day and age, you just don't know what's going to pop up. You don't know what pop up on the internet. The internet is another element all itself, obviously. So like to get back to your original question, I think they'd have them out there a little bit more, but I don't, promotional wise, it's going to be still a little touchy.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. We'll see how it all goes. I maybe we just go to the next segment, because we still have the survey to get to, and I still wanted to get to some Olympic basketball and share some thoughts on Boston Micic and Josh Green. So still to come here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Does it matter that Josh Green has not scored a bucket? And probably has. Like we've been, he didn't play.
Is that current? Have we checked?
I have not checked. We'll check the box score on Australia versus Serbia. That game should be wrapping up any moment as of this recording. It will be done by the time we post it. So I don't know, but we'll talk about the Olympic basketball performances. And I do want to get to the NBA exec survey. So that's still to come in the last segment here on Locked On Hornets. Before we get to that, I do want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. The problem with the music is I don't think that it's coming through the computer like I want it to. Like, I don't think it's coming through the actual system, and instead it's being played over the speakers. And so that's probably not going to sound great once I'm done recording.
I can hear it. It sounds like it's coming right through me.
Okay. If that's the case, then that's an upset, honestly. So I'm glad. I'm glad. If that's the case, then I appreciate everybody holding tight. See, Doug has just this way. He has made the other software system to only where he can control it. And then I got to go to somewhere different to put this show together. Anyways, I'm still complaining about Doug. Don't tell him once he comes back.
He's not watching.
He's not. I know. It's only when he's on the episode, and he's very open about that. The NBA exec survey. So this was on ESPN, and it was about the NBA draft, and it was about, like, who's going to be the best player from this draft? Who do you think got the best value, the steal, biggest reach, all that stuff, right? And the pick that was considered the draft's biggest reach actually goes to Ron Holland for the Detroit Pistons at number 5. That was a surprise. That we all thought that was going to be Buzelis, and instead it was Ron Holland. AJ Johnson going to Milwaukee. Each of those guys, Ron Holland and AJ Johnson, each got 4 votes. And from what it looks like, most people just didn't think that AJ Johnson was a first-round pick, and Milwaukee decided to select him. So those were the first 2. coming into second place or third place, if you will, it's Tidjane Salaun. He received 3 votes here. And honestly, David, I didn't even find a reason why. Like, the ESPN summary based off of the results and some of the comments that front office execs have when answering, they were more for Ron Holland and AJ Johnson. We didn't see anything on Tidjane Salaun. Here's my thing. With the other questions, like who's going to have the better NBA career between Risa Shea and Sarr, the top 2 picks in the draft, Risa Shea won going away. I think Sarr got like 2 votes, but there wasn't a lot. And in fact, Sarr actually got 2 votes for the biggest reach at number 2. Like he was. So yeah, I think that it was pretty heavily influenced by Summer League. And I don't know how deserved that is. I don't know how much that's right to put a lot of stock into Summer League as to say, okay, Alex Sarr, who had like an 0 of 15 game, he's not going to be a better player than Risa Shea, who looked pretty good in Summer League. What I'll say is with this having potential to go wrong for Salaun in Summer League, I'm actually comforted that only 3 people voted Salaun the biggest reach, because that's the low-hanging fruit, right? You didn't expect the youngest player in the draft, the raw prospect, to go in the top 6. If anything, maybe you thought he would go number 8 with the Spurs having reported interest, but okay, now you're starting to go to the back end of the top 10. Like, it's just a very easy thing to say that the Hornets reached more than anybody to go get Salaun at 6. But he goes to the Summer League and like has some moments. He wasn't amazing, but he also wasn't bad. I left Summer League with an overall positive review. So I'm actually comforted. If I were to care about what the execs think, I think really what it shows is if they did put so much influence on Summer League, and you could see that in the results based off of what you saw from Sarr. They called Matas Buzelis one of the biggest steals of the draft, and you saw him have a pretty nice Summer League, some pretty impressive flashes. If it was so influenced, and then the youngest guy actually performed well and didn't win the biggest reach, and actually 2 players beat him in that award, quote unquote, I think it goes to show you, yeah, man, like there's something to work with here. And he performed better than I think a lot of people thought.
Yeah. And, Nada mentioned it the last time we were on, that he didn't see as much of the raw, that everyone else was seeing. And you're right. He had some moments, good and bad, but like, I agree. Like he never looked out of his depth. Some things were moving too fast at times, and some decision making is obviously going to improve. But like, I think that's a dead on assessment that he looked like he belonged out there on the floor. Looked like he belongs as an NBA player, and you have to take his age into account. The reach thing has got to be. I wonder how much of it is like just an instant leftover reaction from draft night, because I mean, I for one was also shocked that they took him on draft night. As anyone who was watching the draft show saw our reaction to that, it was a bit surprising just because no one had slotted him there. They weren't really talked about taking him there. There was a lot more noise around other guys. And so that's maybe just a residual effect, and maybe couple that with Summer League. Who knows how much Summer League those guys watched this year? But when you got guys behind him, kind of standing out, and Buzelis and even Connect, guys like that who had flashes. It's easy to say that, and these polls are, who the hell knows,
right?
To be honest, like the Hornets, I know it's shocking everyone, they don't really do well in the executive surveys in the past. So,
but we're starting to trend. They didn't lose this one, so we're starting to trend in the right direction. And we've talked about that reputation change. I do believe that it's undergoing a pretty big reputation change over there with the guys that they have in the front office. Okay, so David, I'm checking the box score between Serbia and Australia. Serbia's up, which if you were not watching this game in the first half, right? I know we're not doing this real time, but Australia was up 20, and it looked like this game was getting way out of hand against Serbia. So now Serbia, as of this recording, 76-72 with 6:30 left in the fourth. So we are missing a good one, a nice comeback.
And I mean, Joker is on the verge of a triple double. He's got 17, 7, and 9 right now. I don't know how you come back with Joker on the floor with them right now, the way it's going. For Australia, Patty Mills is leading the way, Dante Exum, Josh Giddey. Someone who's not leading the way is Josh Green, who has played 1 second. Wasn't able to score in that 1 second, Walker. So, he's still trying to find his way a little bit on that team. But there's some NBA players on that team.
There are NBA players. FIBA is so different. If you're going to ask me, do I take anything away from what Green is doing in the Olympics and apply it to the Hornets or the NBA? I would tell you I do not. It does not mean that Green is going to be a terrible basketball player, but I would have liked to have seen him maybe score a bucket in one of these. Like, David, he's going to go, if things hold true for this contest here, then Josh Green will have gone scoreless in 4 games of Olympic battle. That's an extreme. Okay. Like that's even getting, so if you go through the first 2 games of what Green did, he was 0 of 5. He was 0 of 2 from 3 combined against Spain and Canada. He had 4 fouls against one of those teams. I forget. I think it might've been Spain.
Wow.
So pretty paltry box score all around. Had 4 assists against Spain. So I guess you were getting involved there, but was like getting some run and just 0 shots were going up. Against Greece in a loss that Australia suffered, he didn't score, missed his only field goal attempt, had 1 foul, didn't play very many minutes. I think logged like 4 minutes and that was it. And now, like, I remember he came in the last like 1.7 seconds of the first quarter, and for defense and just not having other guys foul purposes, how much weight should we put on Green possibly going scoreless? I mean,
you got to play to score, and like he is completely out of the rotation. I mean, everyone else on this Australian team is playing. K is the next up after him. He's played 8 minutes. So I mean, Green's not even playing. So I mean, that does say something. But look, I mean, FIBA, if you're watching any of these Olympics, the thing that stands out, and right on schedule, Australia is now only down 1. It is a different game, man. I mean, some of these games are really nice to watch because of the movement and the ball movement and how guys are moving off the ball. So like, I have no idea when when Green got into, no idea about the Australian national team, but I wouldn't take too much away from it. I mean, for one, in Dallas, he played with Luka, so that's a big help. Luka and Kyrie. He's going to play with LaMelo here. He's going to play with some other guys who hopefully can find him. But yeah, I would be hard pressed to like put much of a blame or forecast too much off of his play in the Olympics, because man, I can't tell who's going to lead the USA in scoring from game to game, to be honest with you.
A different problem though, right? Like, well, actually, maybe not. Like Joel Embiid is out here not getting run. Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, they're not getting run. So perhaps
a little different scenario. I guess you do want to see your NBA guys play.
I think when Doug was on, I think it might have been the last episode he did, it mentioned the awards. We were giving out team MVP, the guys most likely to win NBA awards, and whether we were just confining it to who was on the Hornets roster. I threw out Josh Green for MIP. Like, was there a shot that he plays here with the Hornets? Does he see an uptick in shots? Like, I thought it was going to be hard, so I just threw his name out there. But if Brandon Miller and LaMelo are going to be the guys in the backcourt, and Miles Bridges is your third scoring option, Mark Williams might even be your fourth. Offensively, you're probably not going to see a lot of responsibility from Green. It's going to be, can you give us some well-timed cuts? Can you knock down open threes? Can you take the open threes once they hit you in the chest from a driving or LaMelo or Brandon? This is going to be like somewhat representative, I think, of what we get from Josh Green in the NBA. As far as the applying of, man, not getting any run, no, I guess that's what I mean by not applying that to the NBA. But being more defensive focused, I think we can definitely see that represented here. So I do think we can take that away. The other one, just real quickly before we end, man, Micic has actually been pretty good.
He just as we've been talking, he was just gotten on fire.
6 assists right now. He just got to double digits with you mentioning he hit a couple buckets, right? So he's 2 of 4 from 3. That's kind of on par for what he's been doing, David. He had 11 points against the USA, but he had a better game against Puerto Rico. They trampled over them. 13 points, 6 of 10 shooting, 7 assists. He's logging like 20 minutes off of the bench. They're going to him in important minutes. 15 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 7 assists against South Sudan. I guess like Micic seems like the guy that is the easiest to deal and the easiest to see not on this team. It's because he's good. It's the best ratio of another team would find value in him, and then we would get something in return that was legitimate while also like holding on to a younger player in Trey Mann. It still makes the most sense, but is there enough of a good showing from Micic here where you're a Hornets fan and you're thinking, man, I kind of want to just see him play in the purple and teal next season if he's going to help us out?
I know. And this is really his element too. Obviously, like a former EuroLeague MVP, plays well, is also playing with Joker. So that, that helps everyone. But yeah,
It's going to
he's
help
running the
this
show.
total. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's running the show out there a little bit too. But between those two guys, you have to go into this thing. And well, I would guess Micic is probably going to have a better showing out here between Green and Micic. But I mean, I'm with you. It's like, man, like I hope maybe they could talk him back into coming playing back a few minutes here. Like it's been a rough offseason as far as that relationship between the Hornets and Micic. If there's anything to salvage here,
Right.
But you just look at how he commands, and you think back to the time he played in Charlotte, like when he was out there when LaMelo wasn't playing, and when he could go in there and play some minutes, and you kind of like the idea of having him fill in, giving LaMelo a few minutes on the bench. I mean, a guy that's obviously skilled, older guy. That's the interesting thing to me, how they structure this with all those young guys. Would it make sense to have a more of a veteran point guard in there? It might, but certainly they got to be watching. I think if you're the Hornets, regardless, you want Serbia to keep winning and Micic just keep playing well.
Yeah, and well, I guess one of their guys is going to be knocked out here, although it's tied
Right.
now. Yeah, we got to go.
Oh my God.
We got to watch the end of this game. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for making us your first listen. Locked On Hornets. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. There's David Walker helping me out. Follow the man on Twitter at David B. Walker, and I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. David, appreciate it, man. Thanks a ton for hopping on.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
All right, sounds good. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.